growth is still more extrinsic motivation because it's results oriented. If it's intrinsic, then you don't even care about if you're growing or not. You just enjoy the game. It's fun to do it, regardless if you're growing or not. 3 pillars that make a good leader, which is vision, execution, and empathy. So vision is, where the company's going or the group is going. Empathy is, your team, how they feel, what they're worried about. So they feel like you care about them. And execution is driving progress forwards. What we call white hat motivation core drives. It makes people feel powerful. They feel good. They feel in control, but there's no sense of urgency, so they procrastinate. And then there's what we call black hat motivation core drives. They feel urgent, obsessed, sometimes even addicted. But in the long run, it leaves a bad taste in their mouths because they feel like they're not control their own behavior. Whereas there's intrinsic motivation core drives that are things that you're willing to pay money to just experience it because you enjoyed so much. And even if you lost all your progress the next day, you would still want to do that today, because that's how we measure quality of lives, how much time we spend on things we enjoy doing. Mentality one, where you see everything as the game. Yeah, the game has to artificially add frustration. So every time you overcome these challenges, you feel like, yay, that was fun.
Welcome to Magic Academy podcast. Today with us is a special guest, Yu-kai Chou. He's the founder of Octalysis Gamification Framework, and he has been devoting decades and decades of expertise, experiences, research, practice, consultation, and speaking engagement into helping people understand the motivational drivers for us to design a super engaging game environment. If you were to share something that people have not known about you yet, what would that be?
I am now a father of 3 kids, twin daughters, Symphony and Harmony, that are turning 6, and then Cello, who just turned 4 months old. So
that's amazing. And I like how you name them.
So I'm also a proud father, as you can see.
I guess music plays some sort of important role in your life.
I did play the violin in high school. I played in string quartet. I wrote 3 string quartet songs, but I didn't do anything beyond high school because I started my first year of college. But I like, music terms because they're just beautiful. It's like people would name their children after flower names, Daisy or Jasmine, right? But they don't necessarily have to be botanist to be that. So, I do think it's nice to have children with unique names that have good positive emotional association.
I see. Yeah, it's always going to be staying with them, and hopefully their life will be a beautiful song. We talk about Yukai's story, the founding stories of Octalysis Framework. We touched upon the 8 motivators of Octalysis Framework and categorized them into red hat and black hat motivator. And then we also talked about the potentiality of associating or applying the Octalysis Framework into building empowering, sustainable leadership. That you can apply to your team, your growing teams, and all, even yourself. And we also talk about the new book that Yukai has been developing. It's called 10,000 Hours of Play, and kind of translating and evolving and breaking through what he sees as the key motivators in the game environment and bring that into the real life situation, and treat life as a game that we play. And then if you think you don't have any discipline, or you tend to procrastinate, turn everything into a game, work on your mindset, work on how you see different things that you do, get connected to the big picture, and then that will help you to always improve and delve deeper into your inner motivation rather than the outer motivation, which is not sustainable at all. And we also talk about the potential future that Yukai has imagined in his mind, based on his decades of experiences. And we also talk about the potential challenges and uses for technologies like virtual realities and Web3 in a more abundant world brought by those advancement of technologies. You invented the whole framework of Octalysis framework, and you're also in the process of publishing your new book, 10,000 Hour of Play, and how to play the game of life. So can you share with us a little bit about the Octalysis framework and also the upcoming book and how that kind of transit and evolve into this new upcoming book?
Yeah, so when you say decades, you're right on in terms of it's about 2 decades where I started my gamification journey in 2003, so about 21 years ago. And at the time, I decided that, hey, my life was a game. And that was playing a lot of video games and wasting a lot of time building a strong character in the game, a lot of good gear, a lot of wealth. But then I realized when I quit the game, I would still be the same loser in the real world. So I started thinking about, are there games where the more hours you spend on it, the better your real life is? So I realized life is that game and I should play the game properly. So I turned my life into a game. And then 2003, 2005, I started my first company related to gamification. And then 2012, I published on my blog, yukaicchow.com, the Octalysis Framework. And so for those who don't know, it's between the words octagon and analysis. That's Octalysis. And what it does is it breaks down all human motivation into 8 core drives. So everything we do is based on one or more of these 8 core drives. And so if there's none of these 8 core drives, there's zero motivation, no behavior happens. And then part of the insight is there's different natures of those core drives. There's what we call white hat motivation core drives. It makes people feel powerful, they feel good, they feel in control, but there's no sense of urgency, so they procrastinate. And then there's what we call black hat motivation core drives. They feel urgent, obsessed, sometimes even addicted. But in the long run, it leaves a bad taste in their mouths because they feel like they're not in control of their own behavior. And then we have what we call extrinsic motivation core drives, where you do something for a reward, a goal, a target, but you don't necessarily enjoy the activity. So once you hit your goal, you get your reward, or you get bored of the reward, you stop doing the behavior. Whereas there's intrinsic motivation core drives that are things that you're willing to pay money to just experience it because you enjoy it so much. And even if you lost all your progress the next day, you would still want to do the activity today, because that's how we measure quality of lives, how much time we spend on things we enjoy doing. So I created this Octalysis framework, published on my blog, and within a year, it was picked up quite well. I think it was organically translated into 16 different languages. So then I started having a lot of opportunities to teach the framework, do consulting at places like Harvard University, Stanford, Yale, Oxford, Tesla, Google IDEO. And through the design work on the Octalysis framework with our clients, we calculate that we impacted the experiences of about 1.5 billion users. So just very happy to push that goal. So that's the Octalysis framework. And that's like the origin. Then I'm moving on to, I wrote my first book, Actionable Gamification, Beyond Points, Badges, and Leaderboard.
Yes, yes.
So that one I think sold a little over 100,000 copies, which is not like ultimate bestseller, but for a niche topic that you have to learn how to create things. Now I'm moving on to my second book, which is 10,000 Hours of Play. And so the first book, Actionable Gamification, is for businesses, managers, educators, policymakers to design environments that are engaging for other people. And so that has company commercial value, and that's why I get a lot of consulting project or design for companies. But I think what truly made a bigger impact in my own life is in 2003 when I turned my own life into a game. And so that's where I wanted to write my second book, again, 10,000 Hours of Play, which is really about gamifying your own life and turning into a 6-step process, which is choosing the game you're playing for your life, knowing your attributes, your talents and strengths, identifying your role in the game you're playing, and hopefully that's powered by your attributes. And then once you know your role, choosing to enhance your skills to make you the most powerful player in your role, and then build alliances, and then finally take on quests. So by following these 6 steps, the idea is that it'll be if you do it for 10,000 hours, your life will be successful, but it wouldn't be through blood, sweat, and tears, but it will be through a lot of enjoyment, a lot of fun. And so you're not only successful, but you're happy and joyful and passionate about every day that when you wake up.
I love that. It's kind of like you're bringing the magic into every single moment of their lives and helps supported by this like bigger 6-step frameworks that you're developing. So hopefully everybody's living in harmony every day.
Yeah. So for a lot of people, games are magical. They're just not as useful after the magic is over. So I plan to try to bring all the magic to every moment of our lives.
Break the game free from the game space and grow that, evolve that into the life space, and turn that into a game to help people. Yeah, because you are the
I mean,
expert.
it's the same thing for magic, right? Most of the time, magic starts in magic performances, right, or fictional. And what you're doing here is bring magic from performances and fictional work to everyone's everyday life, also. So I think we're doing very similar things.
Similar work.
Yeah.
Happy. Wonderful. So, we're curious because the Octalysis framework is really tapping into human motivators, and you're talking about the red hat, the black hat, like the good ones. Oh, I'm good, and the other ones, like, we can do it, and then it'll help me to overcome the resistance or the procrastination. I can do it, but it's not gonna last long. Can you help to kind of break it further down? I know the first one is the epic story, that kind of the mission, epic mission of the story.
Yeah, and I do want to clarify, when we call it black hat motivation, it doesn't mean it's like dark forces, it's like negative. It just literally means the brain feels out of control. Like, for instance, core drive 7 is unpredictability and curiosity. So if we read a novel and it's so engaging, we just can't put it down, that's black hat. It's intrinsic black hat. Our brain enjoys it, but we feel out of control. But we don't feel terrible about it, right? It would if we stop doing some other things that were more responsible. But it just means we feel out of control. So that's why, like you said very accurately, sometimes we want to do things. We want to go to the gym more often. We want to eat healthily, and we just can't get ourselves to do it. So then we would use black hat motivation on ourselves to push us to do that. So it's just so there's always the intent of the motivation. What are you trying to get people to do? And that could be good or evil. But the white hat, black hat, and the intrinsic, extrinsic is just the nature of that motivation. Like what kind of trade-offs does it make people feel when it happens? So yeah, that's a clarification. But yes, so for the 8 core drives, the first one, like you said, is epic, meaning, and calling. So this one is you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. So anything that relates to faith or sustainability, protecting the world, honor, anything, sometimes politics, right? It deals with this type of core drive, that you feel like you're doing something bigger than yourself, like making a bigger difference. Then we have core drive 2, development and accomplishment. So that's like the feeling of improvement, leveling up, achieving mastery. And then we have core drive 3, empowerment of creative and feedback. So that is basically themes like meaningful choices, strategy, autonomy, and self-expression. And so those ones that I just mentioned, 1, 2, 3, those are the normal white hat motivation core drives. Like, again, if you're doing things because you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself, you are improving yourself, leveling up, and you're using your creativity and expressing yourself, you feel very happy, right? And you feel good, but again, you don't have a lot of urgency, so you might procrastinate about that. Then we have core drives 4 and 5. Core drive 4 is ownership, possession, which is the drive to want to collect something, to protect what you have, and to get more of what you have. So this deals with like things like virtual currency, collecting baseball cards or stamps, etc. And then we have core drive 5, which is social influence and relatedness. This is all on an octagon shape in the framework, in case that's not obvious. Core drive 5 is on the right side, so it's social influence and relatedness. So this is basically the things you do based on what other people do, think, or say. So things like competition, collaboration, group quests, social appreciation, gifting. And it also has the relatedness piece, which is basically building rapport. Like if you meet someone from the same hometown, or you realize you like the same basketball team, you feel this connection, relatedness, and you're much more likely to do some kind of interaction with this person. And then we have core drive 6, scarcity and impatience. So this is basically saying you want something simply because you can't have it, or it's very difficult to obtain. So sometimes if something's very easy to get, you don't care. Like, why would I want that? But if you know, like, oh, this is the last one left, then you actually go and grab it. Or there's only 10 seconds before you can for you to get it. Then even though you didn't care if you had 1,000,000 seconds, because there's only 10 seconds, you go get it. So the idea that the scarcity drives motivation. So note, there's no core drive called abundance. because the feeling of abundance is actually not that motivating. But there's a core
I
drive
was
called
about to
scarcity
ask
because
this
the scarcity
question.
is yeah.
Okay,
So
hmm.
that's scarcity. And then core drive 7 is unpredictability and curiosity. So basically, this is because you don't know what's going to happen next. You're always thinking about it. So, it deals with things like in the gambling industry, whenever there's a sweepstakes, lottery, raffle ticket system, mystery box, you have this core drive. And it's also, for instance, like I said, why we would want to finish a book or a movie. We don't want spoilers because we want to be curious and want things to remain unpredictable.
What's happen next?
Yes. And then core drive 8 is loss and avoidance. So that's very straightforward. You're doing something to avoid a loss. You don't want something bad to happen. It's the fear core drive. And then it just drives behavior because you're avoiding punishment or negative consequences. So the bottom ones, 6, 7, 8, again, scarcity, unpredictability, and loss and avoidance, those are black hat core drives in the sense that if you're always doing something just to avoid a negative punishment, just because you can't have something or just because you don't know what's going to happen next, it's still very, very powerful in driving our behavior. But in the long run, we feel like, oh, why can't I call the shots? Why can't I control myself? And so you do feel a little bit less confident about yourself or feel a little sad. So white hat motivation is usually good for community management, creative worker spaces, loyalty programs. Black hat motivation is good for short bursts of high level activities or one-time transactions, like you want them to donate money or give you the credit cards, etc. So that's the white hat versus black hat. And then there's also on the octagon left side versus right side. I call them left brain core drives versus right brain core drives. People contest that, hey, it's not geographically left side versus right side geographically, but that's okay because for me, it's a design tool. It just symbolically represents the logical brain for left brain core drives and symbolically represents the emotional brain for right brain core drives, because at the end of the day, people need to use the tool, remember, it's like, okay, left side is left brain, right side is right brain, and they can design better. So the interesting is the left brain core drives, like I said, deal with extrinsic motivation, things you do for a reward purpose or goal, but you don't necessarily enjoy the activity, so you might stop once the reward's not exciting. Whereas right brain core drives deal with intrinsic motivation, so things you just enjoy doing. So as an example, again, the right bottom is core drive 7, unpredictability and curiosity. I've said this a few times. It's on the right bottom, which means right brain, black hat. It means our brains enjoy it because it's intrinsic, but we feel out of control. So this is when, for instance, you want to go to bed at 10 p.m., but then you end up binge watching Netflix at 2 in the morning, right? Your brain enjoyed that process, but you felt out of control. Yeah. So when you use the Octalysis framework, yes. So when you use the Octalysis framework, not only can you kind of predict or analyze any sort of behavior, you can even create behavior, but you can also understand the nature of it. Is it long-term or short-term? Is it intrinsic, extrinsic? So that is why I think the various industries have been very kind to value the framework and see that it creates very useful value to the world.
I love that. And I appreciate that you're kind of seeing black hat and white hat just like different tools. And sometimes we get kind of trapped into one versus the other. And now you're just bringing us into this meta level of like, red, this is what they do, black, this is what they do, and we're in the middle. We're like ism. Like this is what it is and this is what we do. That's great. And have people among your consultations and keynote speech and work with different organizations, have people been applying this Octalysis framework into developing leadership, strategic thinking, and building towards business success or venture success in that capacity?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the goal of leadership is to motivate other people, to motivate the team to do certain behaviors, right? And then do it in the way that's sustainable, long-term. People feel happy. They don't want to quit, right? So, I think that's one of the main strong use cases where it's like the leader needs to set a higher meaning and purpose to motivate the team. So everyone's passionate about the mission itself. The leader needs to make people feel like there's a sense of growth and accomplishment. They need to celebrate win states. The leader needs to give people more autonomy, make them feel like they're meaningful choices, they're valid as individuals. The leader needs to give them a compensation package that kind of makes sense. That's core drive for ownership. The leader needs to provide, social appreciation to everyone. That's core drive 5, social influence relatedness. And sometimes put in healthy doses of competition within the team. A lot of times the leader, if they want to get people to push harder, they go into the black hat with scarcity in terms of, oh, there's only one person who could have this type of reward if you achieve this goal, right? So people work hard to get it. Or, hey, we only have a 3-day window to deliver this and make a difference in the world. So now everyone pushes very hard. That unpredictability and curiosity, and a lot of teams, their tasks are very monotonous. It's boring, the same old thing. And so the leader's able to add more dynamicism, more unpredictably, create delightful surprises in that experience so people feel more engaged. And of course, loss and avoidance. Some leaders are very effective at executing punishment, right, to negative consequences for those who are not doing a good job. So I think how do you balance those 8 core drives is essential for a leader to become an effective leader. And then, of course, you can use the 8 core drives to motivate yourself. So the leader can say, I wish I was more like this as a leader. And they can design scenarios, environments to make them a better leader through those 8 core drives. Same with company strategy, like you said, because most companies' strategy is going to a market, selling more, right? It's always about changing people's behavior, whether it's customers being more loyal or buy more, they tell their friends, or we want to beat our competitors. And so all of that deals with human motivation. And so, like I said, if there's none of these 8 core drives, no motivations, there's zero behavior. Your customers are not buying, your employees are not working, nothing happens. And so if you understand this, then you can get your customers to be more excited about your product. They want to be early evangelists for what you're doing. You can even motivate your competitors to not stand in your way, right? If you're good at executing all these kind of core drive strategies. So I think that's crucial. And then since you're talking about leadership, it's interesting because in my second book, 10,000 Hours of Play, I also have a little attribute chart about the 3 pillars that make a good leader, which is vision, execution, and empathy. So vision is, you know where the company's going or the group is going. Empathy is, your team, how they feel, what they're worried about. So they feel like you care about them. And execution is driving progress forward. So most leaders have 2 out of the 3, good leaders anyway, but not all 3. So I have these different team player types. So if you only have vision, nothing else, you're a dreamer player type. If you only have empathy and nothing, you're a supporter. If you only have execution, you're a hustler. But if you have vision and empathy, you're a coach. If you have vision and execution, you're a commander. If you have execution, empathy, you're a manager. And if you have all 3, I call them an OP leader, which stands for overpowered. And so each of these team player type have its own strategy. Like, for instance, if someone's a dreamer, which means they only have vision, they don't have empathy or execution, it's just a dreamer, sounds like a loser. But dreamers can survive in the world by, being thought leaders. They can be ethicists. Yeah, they can come up with great concept. And also, as part of the team, they can be the advisor, the trusted advisor of another leader who is good at executing, right? So you just have to envision. You don't have to be able to execute anything or be empathetic. But as a dreamer, you can thrive if another leader trusts what you say. Depending on what pillars you have, out of the 3, and what team player type you are, you can still find a good spot to be. But if you want to become a good leader, you need to have, hopefully all 3 of them.
And all these abilities can grow. Like, people can develop, like, people who have lots of empathy can potentially develop, or can they? The dreamer type and the executor type. It's more kind of naturally, like, because based on your 6 step, it's like natural talent plays a big role.
Step 2 is called attributes, which are your talents, right? And some of the ingrained things that you have. And then step 4 is enhancing your skills, which are things you can take a class or read a book and obtain. Now, attributes can grow slowly too over time through life experiences. And this goes into the idea of neoplasticity. Like, our brain can actually mold and change based on the environment, what we need, so we can actually grow beyond ourselves. But it's hard to suddenly take a class and suddenly you're good at empathy. Most of the time you have to develop it over time. And we talk about like vision, right? What is vision? Well, vision has three parts. One is in good imagination to see a future that no one can see, right? You need good logical skills to check if that imagination is realistic or not. Is there a path that can actually get there? And then you need strong conviction, a belief that we can do this together. And if you add these three together, then you have vision. And these three can be trained individually, but it takes time. But again, it's something important for a team leader. And I think it's worthwhile to develop these attributes. There's hundreds of attributes out there and everyone's different. So people have to decide, do they want to just constantly grow their existing strong ones, or do they want to try to make up for their weaknesses? And most of the time it's doubling down your strength is better than making up for weaknesses, unless your weakness punishes you so hard on a regular basis and you cannot avoid that. Then it's worthwhile to solve that.
I love that, because sometimes I think the world has an interesting way of like always finding the shortcomings of everyone. It's just so easy, like those type of things stick out, and then whether the system or people around you always kind of say, hey, this is your shortcoming, please try your best to kind of overcome that, versus, hey, this is your strengths, please double down on this, here are the resources, the environment for you to flourish and thrive in this environment. And
I'll give you a powerful example. So one of my weakness attributes is discipline. Okay. And some people are surprised because they say, well, look, Yukai, you started so many companies, you wrote 2 books, you have all these things. Like, how come you say you don't have discipline, right? Yes. And so, but I truly don't have discipline. I just, like, if I start playing a game, sometimes I just get really addicted to it. Like, I remember I was in the middle of running my companies, doing all that stuff. And then my friend says, hey, here's a new game. Let's play it together. I'm like, okay, let's try it out. And then a week later, I checked the log. I played this game for 90 hours in 1 week. Okay. And I just, again, I had a full-time work and all that, and a family, all that stuff. Right. So I don't have discipline.
So
that was a weakness of mine.
Sleep, I guess.
Yes. So I had a choice to say, all right, I'm going to try to force myself to have better discipline, or I could use my strengths to make up for my weakness. What do I do? I created a system of gamification to make my life fun, to make doing important things like enjoyable. Because if something is fun, you have motivation, you don't need discipline, right? You don't need discipline to play your favorite game. You need discipline to stop playing your favorite game. And then once you do it enough, once it becomes a habit, you don't need motivation to do a habit. You need motivation to stop doing a habit. So my hack is that I made starting a company fun. I think writing my book is fun. I've made all these productive things fun. I am the player in my game, and I'm doing all these things to level up, do well. So I become what people consider very successful. But it's not because I suddenly have discipline. It's because I use a strength to make up for my weakness.
I'm so curious. So how did you make it like? How did you make it fun? How did you make the discipline fun? Like in that case, like, so how did you stop playing the games and make work fun? Like, how?
I think there are 2 types of lifestyle gamification. One is more of a mentality, like seeing everything from a gaming lens. And then the other is doing little tactical things that make each activity a little bit more fun through the 8-core drive, a little more unpredictable, a little more social appreciation, right? So there's 2 sides. I think the easier, and to me, very, very powerful one is the mentality one, where you see everything as 100% score. That's kind of boring, right? Like, no one wants to play this game.
Yeah.
The game has to artificially add frustration, enemies that'll attack you, holes you can fall into and die, spikes. And so every time you overcome these challenges, you feel like, yay, that was fun. I used some of my abilities and I used my creative choice and my strategy and I overcame it. So every enemy and obstacle in the game is there to help you score higher, right? Feel great about yourself. But so people play games and they have this mentality, but then they go in real life and every obstacle they hit, they're like, oh, why does my life suck, right? Why does my life suck? Why are these things happening? Everything's terrible. Everything's falling apart. So by just switching that mindset, hey, look, my life is the game, and that obstacle allows them to score higher and beat the game with more style and fashion, right? So with that mentality, suddenly you're not a victim of your circumstance. You're a player trying to conquer the game and have some kind of legendary achievement. So that mindset is what really changed a lot of things. It's like, well, go out and meet people, make friends, network because you want to be an entrepreneur. Oh, it's so hard. Like, I don't know, it's so awkward. Like, hey, look, you're a tank and you need a wizard to do damage for you as you like defend against enemy damage. You need this role to help you as an ally. It's like, oh yes, I have to do it, right? It's essential. So you go out and you meet people and you see who's playing the same game as you, but they have complementary skills that can work with you and take on new quests and beat the game. So when you see it in these lens, like everything becomes more enjoyable and fun, right? And you don't need discipline to do these things.
Yes, it's all about rewards. It's all about growth. It's like a true growth mindset in a game, in a life like a game situation. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's about a growth mindset, but growth is still more extrinsic motivation, left brain, because it's results oriented. But if it's right brain, intrinsic, then you don't even care about if you're growing or not. You just enjoy the game. It's fun to do it, regardless if you're growing or not.
I love that. Yeah, that reminds me. Somebody said there's no destiny of Utopia. Utopia is not like a destiny. Utopia is the process. So
yeah,
we're kind of like building a utopia process.
Yeah, this is why I think it's a mistake if their goal is to just make a lot of money, because I think money is a tool. It's like fuel to get you to your destiny, right? But your destiny cannot be just more fuel to get you to your next is with more fuel, right? If you get fuel just so you can have drive to get more fuel, I think that life is very circular and almost depressing, right? You make money, so it allows you to have resources to actually reach your destiny that you care about, that you're passionate about. And on the journey, that is the play, that is the fun. And I think it's important to enjoy the journey, because there's a lot of games people don't finish playing, like they never beat it, but they have fond memories of playing, like Super Mario in the original NES. A lot of people
have
great memories, but they never beat the game. Yeah, they never competed, but no one thinks I failed in playing that. That was a scarring, traumatizing experience. I was a loser, right? By playing the game, you're winning. So the only way you don't win is if you don't play, right?
Yeah, the moment that I remember is I jump on that top of the flag and then get like a full point, and then the fireworks started. Yes, yes. That's a good time. Yes. Beautiful. we can continue this conversation forever. However, let's kind of take another direction and look into the future. What would be the best version of the future that you can envision with your experience and your mindset? Alongside with all this advancement of technologies, artificial intelligence, virtual realities, and like human brain machine connections, neural links, and whatever, more and more to come, AGIs, whatever. What would the best future look like in your version?
I think the best feature is that AI enables abundance. And I think that is every time there's a huge technology leap, there's abundance. There's always people who are afraid of job displacement, but usually creates way more jobs, right? If everyone needs to be a farmer, then everyone's farming, but then a machine comes out and it can do the work of 100 farmers. Yeah, so one farmer can do 100x, but that means 99 people can do other things. It's a booming society. Then they can research technology and do other things, right? And so usually, unless the AI comes self-conscious, alive, and has like other agendas, which is a totally different conversation. Yeah, as a tool, because it's so powerful, it decreases the cost of creating value. When you decrease the cost of creating value, that means it's a abundantly growing industry. That's what software did to the world, right? When software got better and better, one engineer could do the work of 10 previous engineers that had to use their punch cards to validate the code and all that stuff. It didn't mean like, oh, well, software engineers no longer have jobs. When you have lower costs of creating value, suddenly it's a booming industry. You suddenly have all this software everywhere eating the world. You have these jobs that are supporting software, all that stuff, right? So AI, it has the power to create abundance, and with that abundance, and this is almost going into which is dangerous territory, like Karl Marx talked, because when he saw the Industrial Revolution, he was actually impressed with the machines. Like, hey, one day if you machines are going to be so good, you press a button and then everything will show up, all the food will come out, and in that world, people who want to be a shepherd, they will be. People who want to be a poet, they will be. It's all intrinsic, right? So any country was inspired by that, and they tried it, but it never got to a point where they had that technology that all the food comes out. Like, resources still dependent on human labor and motivation, and the communist model just doesn't make people motivated to work hard in a lot of things. So it didn't work out. So it possibly enables that, but I still think in that world there's still gonna be game rules and that make people enjoy, that make people feel like, hey, I want to still strive for something higher to show that I am a good person. I want to see my growth. I want to be creative, and I want to be rewarded for the work I do. So I still think it's going to have its abundance, but there is a level of what they call capitalism system, where people who work hard to deliver more value will be rewarded more in status and opportunities. In gamification, we call it SAP, status, access, power, stuff. Yeah, but the key is that the people who should decide not to do it, they're not suffering. They have a very good safety net. They're enjoying the abundance, but they're not playing the game. They're not playing the game, so they're low-level players, and they're not achieving that glory and high results. So I think this is the good case scenarios where resources are there and people are happy, but there's still a system where good and hard work is a reward. I think those three things come in place really well. I don't necessarily like the future of, let's say, everyone thinks the real world is bad, so they all live in VR all day long, like the Matrix. I don't think that's a positive feature. I think augmented reality, making everything you see in the real world more dynamic, more interesting, give you knowledge, I think that's something very, very helpful and useful. I think blockchain technology will have its place in terms of, especially with this abundance, like how do you add scarcity to it, right? You have all this perfect art to it. So I think because everything's so easily created and replicable, blockchain technology makes some things non-fungible, and then the stories will be more important than anything. So the AI will create perfect art everywhere, but then this art is valuable because this is the art drawn by a 14-year-old girl who survived cancer, right? And her story is powerful. She made turn her experience into a painting, and then the painting comes, let's say, an NFT on the blockchain. There's only 50 authenticated copies of that. And these 50 ones are valuable because of the story behind it and because it's authentic. It's like she personally signed it herself, right? Where everyone can copy her artwork, there's only 50 that she signed it herself. So I think blockchain is actually useful for protecting IP and making things so scarce and valuable in a world of abundance. So I see technology moving those kind of places.
That's amazing. Yeah, I like how I think future the story, the authenticity of the story is the true value, the epic meaning and the epic story. It's the beginning and it's the end, kind of like a full loop. Beautiful. Thank you, Yukai. And before we move into the magic piece of the conversation, I would like to give a brief recap of everything we've talked about. So we've talked about Yukai's story, the founding stories of Octalysis Framework. We touched upon the 8 motivators of Octalysis Framework and categorized them into briefly like red cap and then the red hat and black hat motivator. And then we also talked about the potentiality of associating or applying the Octalysis Framework into building empowering, sustainable, and leadership. That you can apply to your team, your growing teams, and all even yourself. And we also talk about the new book that Yukai has been developing. It's called 10,000 Hours of Play, and kind of translating and evolving and breaking through what he sees as the key motivators in the game environment and bring that into the real life situation, and treat life as a game that we play. And then if you think you don't have any discipline, or you tend to procrastinate, turn everything into a game, work on your mindset, work on how you see different things that you do, get connected to the big picture, and then that will help you to always improve and delve deeper into your inner motivation rather than the outer motivation, which is not sustainable at all. And we also talk about the potential future that Yukai has imagined in his mind, based on his decades of experiences. And we also talk about the potential challenges and uses for technologies like virtual realities and Web3 in a more abundant world brought by those advancement of technologies. So, all right. So now let's talk about the magic. So Yukai, when you were about like 11 years old, what did you enjoy creating so much that time disappeared?
When I was 11 years old, it's interesting because in middle school and high school, I created a lot of things. This is an interesting story where when I was in was elementary school, what did I create? I mean, I like to create stories in my head. I guess you could say that. I like to converge all the stories I read, fictional work, and I like to converge them all into one universe in my head and have all these characters, organizations interact with each other and have that world keep expanding and things happen in the world. So that's what I really enjoyed doing when I was 11.
Oh, I like that. And I see a lot of similarities. That's the work that you're doing, is creating this framework and helping to build those characters so they can interact with each other, and then now moving to like game of life. So it's kind of like continuing on that particular pathway. Nice.
Absolutely.
What?
But thanks for reminding me. I actually forgot about I used to do that back in elementary school.
Beautiful. You have an imaginary garden. I recently watched a movie of If Imaginary Friend.
Okay,
Have you
I've not
watched
seen
that?
it.
Yeah, I bet you probably have a lot of imaginary friends through, as you create those stories to talk with them and help to guide them through how they should develop a game plan in that world that you imagine.
Actually, in high school, I started writing a novel. And novel, there's two main characters. One was 16 and one was 25. And the 16-year-old, I'm not sure if I did it on purpose, at least not consciously, but it was more similar to who I was at the time, and I was about 16. And the 25-year-old was more like who I wanted to become. And the novel was more about their journey together and the 16 learning from the 25-year-old. And so I think over the years, I guess I became more like that 25-year-old in my novel.
I love that. It's like you've already playing your life like a game from a very early age. That's amazing. Were there any particular challenges that you have to overcome as a human being?
Yeah, because my father's a diplomat, so I moved from country to country a lot. I spent 6 years in South Africa from 2 to 8. And so I moved back to Taiwan in third grade, and then eighth grade I moved to Kansas. But I think my journey as a child was more, I get thrown in a new environment. I don't speak language very well. I'm behind in school, and I'm socially awkward, cultural shock, so I get bullied. And I work hard, so I try to catch up in school. I get okay grades, and I start getting friends and learning how to get people's respect, and then get thrown in environments where I completely suck again and have to pick up from there. So I think it was difficult as a child, but it gave me a lot of attributes, perseverance,
yes, you're collecting all the
adaptability.
progress.
Yeah. And so when I started my first company in college, I recruited some of the smartest people I know. I think they're much smarter than me. But what I realized is that they didn't have that experience of perseverance. So everything was so easy for them growing up. They got easy A's. They're brilliant people. They didn't have to go out of their comfort zone to make new friends. So when startups hit difficult scenarios, everyone's like, we should give up. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? This is like the norm. Struggling is easy and the norm. And then I was able to go out and meet people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, raise funding and all that stuff. So I realized difficulty and hardship are just levels that make you gain skills and level up. So those are good. I've failed companies before. That was hard. Those are struggling. But like you said, you don't play a game and you lose, you die once, and you quit the game, right? And it's like, okay, now I've learned. Let's play it again.
Yeah, and then let the Mario's moment kind of come back to you whenever you need it, and keep us going.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is your magic, do you think? It's probably evolving over the years.
I think my magic is being able to connect things that people think are unrelated and put it together and turn it into something new and useful. So, whether it's gamification, combining game and business, or merging different theories, like I create a lot of different frameworks. My goal is to create 100 frameworks in the world in my life. I think I'm like 30 now. The Octalysis one is the most famous one. Yeah, I think that's probably my magic, being able to synthesize things that people think are completely unrelated.
I love that. It's like cross-disciplinary, cross-dimension, cross-idea kind of connection. I love that. It's like creativity, but applied creativity, disciplined creativity, because you're always bringing like not just the framework that you create, but you also bring in further guides, whether it's a community, whether it's like strategy, and for people to not just know the framework, but also kind of integrate the framework into their environment, their particular context and situation. It's deep
yeah,
magic.
Absolutely.
I love that. Great. It's a great conversation, Yukai, and thank you so much for sharing your time with us. And for folks in the community who are interested and want to have a conversation or create more magic or create new stories, or apply his Octalysis framework to your leadership development program, or read his new upcoming book of 10,000 hours of play, whatever way you prefer to do, just his contact information and resources are on the show note below. So we strongly encourage you to get connected, get inspired, and hopefully everybody who's listening can turn your life into a game that you never wanted to quit to play, because it's so fun. Thank you so much, Yukai. And thank you so much for your time and your gift, sharing your gift with us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, and keep the magic going.